to a point in your career, and perhaps the Covenant incident was that for me in some regards. But you just stop, and everybody's felt this way, that where you say, I didn't sign up for all this. And for days after that, I'm pounding my fist on the desk saying, why? Why would this happen? Why would something so insane happen? I didn't sign up for any of it. This is why this is so important. A little girl, I'm told she's 6 years old, from Texas. I never met her. I received this card in the mail from her, and it changed the way I see things and the way I look at things. And the front says, thank you.
Sometimes there are events that happen that impact our lives forever. And today we talk about one of those events. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the TIMSA Leadership Podcast. My name is Eric Claus, and I'm honored to be able to be your host. Today we talk to two extraordinary leaders from Nashville Fire Department. The first conversation is a little lighthearted, talking about Nashville, talking about the fire department and EMS, which, as you know, Nashville is well known all over the world. And then we dive deep into a conversation that completely changed many people, many lives. We talk about the Nashville Covenant School shooting. I know you're going to want to stay tuned to this episode, and we appreciate you joining us here today. Nashville is a special place, and we're honored that both of you joined us here today. I've been looking forward to having this conversation for, well, Fred, you and I talked about this some time ago after I had learned about you guys being able to take this story nationally. And full disclaimer for everybody listening, this is going to be a very, very difficult conversation for some because of the sensitivities, but we feel that we need to bring light and bring attention because there are things that we all need to learn about this. And before we kind of jump into the incident that happened, would love to kind of formally share with everybody what both of you do. You've been with the fire department, EMS, for many, many years, but Chief Swann, Chief Smith, and would love to kind of hear about your journey and how long you've been here and what role you have, and then we'll turn it over to Chief Smith and let him share too.
Absolutely. Well, first, I'm absolutely honored to be with the Nashville Fire Department. I've been with them for 29 years, and that's something that Chief Smith and I, we share that year of coming on. So I've been with the fire department for 29 years. I came on in '95, and my travel up to being the director chief has been nothing short than phenomenal. This department's been in existence since 1860. I'm actually the first African-American chief ever to sit in this role, and it speaks more about the city than it does me. Of course, I've been very fortunate and blessed. God has put a lot of good people in my life, along with the hard work, because it does pay off. But this department have evolved in such a, I don't even call it the fire department anymore, it's the all hazardous department, because we deal with everything from A to Z. And we are so honored and privileged to be over a department that has such hardworking men and women that every day they put it on the line. And it's a complete honor for me and anyone in this field as a public servant in public safety to be in a position to be able to help individuals when they're in need. Unfortunately, our work, we do deal with and see a lot of stuff that the average person does not see. But at the end of the day, it's making a difference. I always say, don't just be present, but be relevant. Make a difference. So this position that I'm in, again, I've come through the ranks. I've hit everything from firefighter to, of course, captain, and I was an instructor. I'm over the Office of Emergency Management as well, which encompasses the whole city, which is a unique for fire departments to have some call it EMA, but it's the Office of Emergency Management here. So we deal with not just the fire department, we deal with the whole city. Anytime something happens in the city that overtax one department, we'll meet at the EOC and where we'll pull all the parties into what we call the war room, and we sort of mitigate and handle that situation. So again, So my walk to this position has been one of disbelief, and but I am completely honored, and every day I'll try to make sure that I do not just be present but be relevant and make a difference. So again, it's in 29 years it has gone super fast. I'm literally sitting here and I wonder what has happened with time. But again, I'm completely honored. And I couldn't see myself really doing anything else. I come from a background of military. I did 5 years in the military, and then after that I went to different little venues that I thought I wanted to do, and then I ended up getting on the fire department, and it was the closest thing that I could find to what I was accustomed to, being in a family-oriented career that really is bigger than yourself. You know, the brand of the Nashville Fire Department is much bigger than any one of us as an individual.
Yeah, as we are looking here, that's very recognizable across Tennessee, I'm sure across the nation too, for what you all do. Chief Smith, tell us about what you do and how long you've been here.
Sure, thank you. To the point of our brand, the Nashville Fire Department sign that you just pointed out, we were established in 1860 as a paid department. It's the oldest department in the country.
I had no idea.
No one's got us beat there. So we take a lot of pride in just what that brand really means. The men and women here care about the job they do. So I started in '95, as Chief just indicated, as a paramedic on the division, and I like to call my street level years, right? And I miss those days still to this day. It's a part of my life that changed me, that made me who I am today, and made me appreciate the people. Then I continued to work hard. I went down to the academy and became an instructor. After a few years, I made district chief. I became the chief over the medical aspect of training. And then I was blessed. I came up to headquarters as an assistant chief, and then continued to raise through the ranks until in this position over EMS operations as a deputy director. I can't echo enough the words that Chief Swann just gave us. We are in service for the people of this community, the people who travel through this town, the people who visit. Nashville is such a wonderful and warm place to visit and to live. You have to experience it to appreciate it, but our jobs, day in and day out, is to protect those who come here medically and in an all hazards capacity. No matter what they might step into or face, we are there for them. So we're very proud of that. We've got 34 ambulances that are full-time on the streets every day.
Wow.
And we see, from an administrative point of view, the real difference that's being made in people's lives from that balcony. When you're a street level medic, you touch lives individually, one at a time. But the real honor is when we sit back and we take a look at the accomplishments that we've made and that we're making daily in people's lives. That's when you know you're in the right profession, that you've made the right choices. And we're so blessed that we have great relationships with the hospitals here in town. And what some people call the white shirts, have a mindset that we're in service to support our working class. The paramedics and the EMTs and the firefighters that are on the street every day, we are here to support them. And with that mindset, it works.
Yeah, and let me add too, and when we talk about the size of the department, we have like 42 fire stations. He's told you about the how many ambulances that we have, and then of course our fire engines, our trucks, our hazmat unit. We have air rescue, and when I say an all hazardous department, that's what we are. We work closely with our partners from the hospitals, and of course with the military. We do quite a bit of training, and again, the Nashville is a collage of just a little bit of everything, and we're a melting pot of people from all over this country, all over the world. And as Chief was stating here, our main focus is to always public safety first, And when people come to Nashville, we want them to have a great experience, one that they can walk away with, a memory that locks in forever. And it is a challenge, though, because the behind the scene, behind the curtain, is a lot of work that goes on. Nashville has multiple events that we plan. I mean, if you come to Nashville and you go down Broadway or just go anywhere, but especially, we all think about, from the Fifth and Broad down to Riverfront, but it's all over Davidson County. But the venues that we have from events, planned events, and then of course the unplanned events that we have, and especially since the 2020 up until present time, we've been hit with just about everything. And the one thing that I'm proud of, the umbrella of the Office of Emergency Management that's under and attached to the fire department, we work real good. The infrastructure of Nashville, Davidson County, work great together. Our PD partners, we work, of course, with all public safety, our state and federal partners. We've had over 16, it was 26 declarations since the beginning of 2020 to present time. That's a lot. And then we start thinking about the relationships that we cherish, and we do a lot of training. There's nothing more important than the military. It was the pre-prior planning prevents passport performance mindset. And for me, I operate off of those 4 keys of success, which are: you got to analyze, you got to plan, you got to implement it, and then reevaluate it. And it's a constant footprint that you can apply, not just at work, but you can apply that in everything in life. And we do that. So our challenge is to keep Nashville, we're in the top 10 places to visit, and #1 bachelors and bachelorettes come, and all kinds of good stuff. And we want people to have a good time. And we have to work double hard to try to make sure that not only is it a good time, but it's safe. So I'm just proud of the relationship that we do have with all of our partners, because again, this city is way too big for one entity, but the Nashville Fire Department plays a major role, just like any department, I think, or city. If no matter what that call is, you're going to get somebody from the fire department, because again, we're sort of jack of all trades, and we respond to everything. So again, it's a complete honor. Yeah. And I think sometimes we don't, we can get caught up in the daily work and focusing on things that may become a primary focus. But as Chief Smith said, there's nothing more important to me and nothing more valuable to me than the men and women that works for us. We are one team, and then the importance of this, making sure when people come here, they walk away with a great feeling.
How many visitors per year do you all get to Nashville? Do y'all know that number?
I did know it at one time. I'm so sorry I do not, but it's way in the millions. I think when we talk about the Visitors Bureau convention, I talk and deal with them on a pretty much weekly basis, and I know they had somewhere, it's 14 million plus, but I can get that number for you.
Yeah, that's okay. I know it was millions.
But it's up there. Yeah, it's up there. And of course, just the daily commute. I mean, you have, we've got 532 square miles that we deal with as far as Davidson County, but the people that commute in and out, it's just, it's phenomenal. So it's high traffic. So the runs that we deal with, the volume of run is the high frequency, high risk events that we deal with all the time, and those are things that, of course, get you in trouble because you get complacent with it. But what we have found in the last few years is now we have the high risk, low frequency events, and those are the ones that again are become a challenge because of usually either man-made or natural disaster of some sort. So the training aspect, as I stated earlier, in 6-day grace period, we'll make a little over 3,200 runs with the combination of the fire department. We're talking about EMS and fire, but the the type of runs and the type of things that we see and deal with on every day, we've just seen it's starting to change, especially with weather events. But we do a lot of training. On the fire side, they try to, I think the last training records that I got, they had put in, I think it was close to 3,000 training hours, and we calculate all that, which is very, very important. And of course, due to the in-service, and I know with EMS as well, we're very I guess, intentional about making sure that we keep our training up, because again, if you're not training and not being prepared for something. And then I think our partnership, we do a lot of tabletop exercises and participate in a lot of that, because it's important to know who your partners are. Mm-hmm. It's important to know their strengths, because what you don't want to do is, in a case of emergency, you run into a situation where you don't know each other, and then what happens, egos start playing a role, and people's feelings get hurt. But we have a great partnership, and that helps us to be who we are and help us in those moments of when we get into those stressors, because I know I can call John personally up and say, hey, what's going on, or do you need more assistance? So we got a great partnership, and I think it behooves all departments. And if that's one thing I could say to any chiefs or directors in any field, you need to know who your partners are.
Definitely.
And you need to, and it's not just knowing them by affiliation, by a piece of paper. You need to be having breakfast or lunch. You need to do tabletops. You need to know their strengths, their weaknesses, because it's not a matter of if, but it's when. And when that when happens, you'll be better prepared and have a better way of dealing with the situation.
How many team members do you all have here with the fire department, including fire and EMS?
Personnel?
Personnel,
yeah.
Yes.
So we have a total within the department of close to 1,700. And that's, of course, the whole gamut. So with suppression, it's about 900 some, and then with EMS, what is it?
About 450.
450, yeah. So we have a large department that we're very appreciative of course, the current administration, and especially and then the prior administration, Mayor Cooper, really trying to help us grow, because one of the things that we all know, all departments suffer from the city grow, but making sure the department grows with the city is always a challenge, because we're not just growing up, but we're growing out. So our current administration knows that, and we're working really diligently to try to come up with plans to expand the department, because one thing that is our biggest fear for me is not having the tools and the personnel to accomplish the task that's on hand, because again, that goes into a safety factor for the men and women that's doing the job. So
I will take this opportunity to plug our department and say that we are hiring. EMS,
qualified
individuals.
Yes. And it's a national problem, when it comes to EMS, but it's a great department to work for. Let me just plug that in there. I think all departments would say the same with this, but again, we have a excellent work ethic here, and there is expectation with
That's
everything.
all part of the leadership thing. Yes,
absolutely.
expectations,
If you don't have an expectation, no one will ever let you down, right?
Right.
So, our brand, the brand that you see behind me, again, is something that many before us worked on to keep it, and we're working on it, and those after us will be working on it. But it's a place that if you want to grow and you want to make a difference and you want to be a part of a family, this is a place for you.
Well, Chief Swann, we appreciate you joining us here today. We know you got to head out,
Absolutely.
But we are honored. We appreciate your leadership and how you lead the community, and it's just truly an honor to be here and to have a conversation with you and Chief Smith. So thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, and listen, it's always an honor. I mean, Vanderbilt, and especially with you, I've known for many years, and of course, I'm very proud of Chief Smith. I think to watch him grow, and we had a lot to do with him putting him in this position, because he was the right person and excelled in everything that he's done. And I cannot thank him and again, thank the men and women on this job and what they do, and emphasize that being intentional and being relevant, not just present, is something that we all can do. And so again, I thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah,
I do have to run, but listen, it's a complete honor. And thank you so
Yes,
much. Let me
thank
get it in there.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you so much. All right, Fred.
Thanks, Chief.
All right, thank you.
Chief Smith, so we're going to get into the hard stuff right now. And as I had shared with everybody that is tuning in, this potentially could be emotional, I think, for both of us and for the people that are listening to this. So I don't know where the conversation's going to go, and we're just going to kind of let it unfold. And so March 27th of 2023, take us back to that morning and what you were doing.
Sure. Let me preface, Eric, if you don't mind, for just a second to say that how overwhelmingly proud I am of the men and women that responded to Covenant School, that had any part in it whatsoever. And even the stress that those folks who work for us, who were at home, it was a tough day. So, like 9/11, this is one event that will always remember where we were at and what we were doing, who we were talking to, what we were eating when that call came in. So Monday mornings are typically our meeting days. We had our executive board meeting. We had just gotten started with it, and a page came across that an incident had occurred. We get several of those that don't turn out to be an actual event, fortunately, but something in these notes just did not seem right.
Monday, March 27, 2023, 10:15 and 57 seconds. Engine 20, Engine 2, Truck 27, Rescue 1, District 8, EMS District 20, EMS District 24, Medic 20, Medic 19, Medic 21, Medic 6, Medic 23, EMS District 38, EMS Assistant Chief 33, Burton Hills Boulevard, cross of Hillsborough Pike and Seven Hills Boulevard, Covenant School. Active aggressor, stage 4 PD. On Bravo 8. Engine 20, Engine 2, Truck 27, Rescue 1, District 8, EMS District 20, EMS District 24, Medic 20, Medic 19, Medic 21, Medic 6, Medic 23, EMS District 38, EMS Assistant Chief 33, Burton Hills Boulevard, Covenant School. Active aggressor, stage 4 PD. On Bravo 8.
So I looked at my Commander Haas, and I said, let's go. So we got up from the meeting and we left. As I recall, our public information officer said, I'm going with you. And yeah, that's what we were doing. We were in a meeting, and as soon as the page came out, we left the offices and headed that way.
What did the page say?
The typical active aggressor, school. I don't recall what it was in the text of the page that we received that really made me think this is different. But I do recall getting up, going to my office, and pulling up the main CAD reports and looking at it and thinking, nah, let's just head that way. Mm-hmm. So our Monday morning meetings are important. We take those seriously. So there was enough there to make me think,
yeah,
let's get rolling on this.
There is a fire station, EMS station, that is near the school.
Yes.
Yeah. When we were talking, you had shared that something happened. That the crew was outside, if I remember the story correctly.
Right. So Station 20, to give you a little historical relevance here, the station itself is right next door to the school.
Okay.
Like, their properties connect. In the station or firehouse, whatever you want to call it, there's an engine, a fire truck that has a captain, an engineer, and 2 firefighters, an ambulance with a paramedic and an AEMT, advanced EMT, and a district chief is stationed there who happens to be an EMS paramedic. The crews were out on the ramp that morning and washing the ambulance and just doing their regular checkoff stuff that they do every morning. And they thought they could hear some gunfire from the direction of the school. Somebody had actually passed by and said, "Hey, we think there's a shooter at the school," which really added a lot of relevance to it. So that's how their morning began.
This is before the call came in.
This is right before the call came in, yes.
Okay. So the call comes in. They're obviously, they're suspecting that's an event. They're heading that way. The tones drop. They go to the call. When you guys were responding to the school, when was the awareness of, okay, this is real. This is not a drill. This is happening.
Right. So let me answer that, but give a little bit more history there. This crew, the crews at Station 20 are real diligent in their community. They'll pre-plan schools, pre-plan businesses, the mall. They're trying to get a good lay of the land, so to speak, to understand what they'll be responding to if there were ever a mass casualty incident or a large fire or whatever the scenario may be. That's the same for this school. They had already pre-planned, they knew the layout, and they had already predetermined a good staging area. So they left and went to staging well before the call had been actually dispatched.
I'm pausing here for a second just to put myself in that crew's position of hearing the gunfire, asking myself, is this real, and having the understanding, okay, this is going to be bad.
Yeah. And
So
to answer your question, it became real for us when we're en route and police officers are passing us with a real sense of urgency.
okay.
And then the radio traffic itself. So a lot of the specifics to the case itself or to the incident itself is still under investigation, so we don't get to talk a lot about it. At some point in the future, I'm sure will be a lot more revealing. But some of the information that was coming back across to us on the radio gave us that sense that this is not a false call. This is an actual event. And the reality really begins to set in that this is happening. In this moment, this is happening.
Yeah. So can you take us back to when you arrived and what you saw?
Sure. So as I arrived, like I said, it was Commander Haas and myself and our Kendra Loney, our public information officer, a number of police officers, our personnel. We had already established our portion of the incident command system. Our incident commander had met with the police incident command and established a unified command. So they were organizing and preparing and trying to really figure out everything that was going on. We didn't take over command when we got there. Our incident commander was doing a good job. And as Chief Swann was telling us earlier, our training is extremely important, and we are involved in our training. So we have a lot of confidence in our subordinate officers to make sure to know that they know what they're doing on these scenes. So there's no reason for me to take over. And I'll tell you, from a management perspective, a leadership perspective, the top of the echelon doesn't need to take over. My phone began ringing from multiple stakeholders, state EMS, hospitals, regional hospital coordinators, et cetera, et cetera. My phone was blowing up. Chief Swann's phone was blowing up, from the mayor on down and on up, I'm sure. So you just can't run in there and do both jobs. So have confidence. You have to have confidence in the personnel that you've put in those places. And ours was doing a really good job. Police officers were doing a good job. Police command was really communicating back and forth with us. But we were on the scene. You saw the glass. You saw the energy. And you knew what was going on inside that building, or had gone on inside that building.
Were there kids in the front of the school when you got there?
We didn't see any children at that point.
Okay.
Right. And I'll tell you, the police, our Metro police officers absolutely did a phenomenal job. They did their job they were trained to do. It made an entire difference.
Yeah.
It made a complete difference, which allowed us to be able to immediately follow up and do our job behind him.
Yeah. At what point were you made aware of how many fatalities were there?
Those began being reported
Okay.
on the radio
Okay.
right away,
Okay.
which also added to the absolute realness
Yeah.
of the, I don't know what word to use, but when you realize you're standing in the middle of an incident that's real,
Yeah.
at that point, you're engaged.
Yeah.
And your training takes over, though. It's not like you're standing there in a moment of stupor. It's kind of strange how that works, because you have trained for this, and
Yes.
we train as if it were real. We train with our partners as if we're going and acting and doing a real incident. It's the emotional component that you can't train for
Yes.
in that moment. And if your training is right, if you've done that training correctly, and people who train a lot will understand this, the military folks will understand this, then that emotion is removed from you at that time.
Yeah.
It's all training.
Yeah. And then it's after is where certainly the emotion is.
That's the part you don't plan for.
Yeah, definitely. And I know we're gonna dig into that. So Chief Smith, when the event is over, kind of summarize the lives that were lost and how many people were injured during that event.
So we lost 3 children and 3 adults, staff members of the school. There was a couple other 2 or 3 people that had associated injuries from glass and whatever. Yeah, it was a total of 6 fatalities that day.
Okay.
And I have to reiterate again that the quick action of the police officers really minimized that loss,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah, this was not just a national event, but I'm sure it was just international when,
Yeah.
An event of this magnitude. You had mentioned to me you've been doing this a long time, and you have worked some very, very difficult events. This one was different. You and I had the conversation, and you said this certainly probably the worst event I had ever worked.
Yeah, on multiple levels, Eric. You're a paramedic, you're an RN. So you'll understand this, and I think your audience will too. When we, the first responders, go to school, we go to school and we're taught that if you do X, Y, Z, you're gonna fix this problem. We become, in essence, fixers. People call us, we arrive in a hurried way, and we do what we can to make your world and your life and your incident or your experience better. That's what we're trained to do, whether it's through our rapid transport or the medicines that we give, or just our pure training. We are there and we make an attempt to fix things. And what makes this different? Because we've all seen trauma. We've all seen terrible things happen to people's lives that destroy their worlds. But this is insanity. There is no reason why this should have happened, and we couldn't fix it. And after the incident, we couldn't explain it. There was no rationale that could be associated with why this happened to these innocent people, especially our very young. Yeah. It's tragic either way, but when we're talking about the babies, the innocent portion of our communities, these people who 1 minute are dancing and laughing and going through their happy young lives, and the next moment it's robbed them. It's been robbed from them. That's the most difficult part, is how do you explain this? You go into this job because you care. Every single person who does the work that we do every day, whether it's first responders or first receivers, the nurses and the doctors in the emergency departments, there was some element of their character that said, I want to help people. Mm-hmm. And when that's been taken away from you, then you're left kind of empty, and you don't have an answer. Yeah. Some of these other incidences, as tragic as they may be, you have an answer. A tire blew out. They shouldn't have been running across the interstate. Somebody to blame for what went wrong. Here, there's no answer. So that's what makes it difficult. That's what makes it the hardest cases of our career, is that you just, how do you put it into context? Why it's insanity.
At what point after the event, after the active part of this event, did you kind of feel the weight of not only you're dealing with your emotions because we're human, regardless of our leadership positions, you're having to process it. And then you have to check on your crews, and that's a leader's nightmare almost when you were dealing with it yourself, and then you have people on the front line that have been in there and they're seeing the things that you can't erase. And tell us about that. How did you deal with it directly, and then your crews? We know that they still think about it every time you ride by the school. There's no way to avoid it.
Well, for me, that's a good question, Eric, and it's thoughtful. And for me, that's not a difficult question to answer, because my entire career, my life, I support the things that I've done and seen and experienced with faith. I am a strong believer in our Lord, and I believe that people are taken care of, ultimately. As a leader, though, as a manager of other people, my concern is much greater than me, right? It's how did they what was their experience? What are they feeling? What can I do for them? And that's a helpless feeling all by itself. Yeah. As a manager, as a leader, you're almost, if not expected, you're internally feeling like you should do something to help or to have the right words. We recently lost somebody on our department in a tragic way. It's broken all of our hearts, and the words you're searching for aren't there oftentimes. It's the same thing. We're trying to say something that makes it all better, but there's nothing there. Yeah. What I am immensely proud of, what Chief Swann is immensely proud of, is the men and women who showed up to work that day did a great job. They put all of those emotions aside, and they did what they were trained to do. Yeah. When they put their hand on the door handle, just to use a euphemism, when they put their hand on the handle of that building, their mind was already made up that they were going inside. There was no hesitation. And their job was to try to save as many lives as they possibly could, because they didn't know what was on the other side of that door. Right. They really didn't know if there was any additional threats. But because we train with our Metro Police brothers and sisters, we had that confidence that we got the best security in the world standing around us, right? So let's focus, do our jobs, and move forward. So there's a lot of comfort for me knowing that these guys did the best job that they can. And after that, it's just a support element. What do you do? I'll be there for you.
And you all have an amazing support team here. We know that. I think you guys have modeled that for years. I
got to tell you, Eric, I appreciate you saying that, because I think that we do. Our critical incident stress team are phenomenal at what they do. But you guys, the hospitals in our community, rallied around us and supported us in ways that we didn't expect. Because, as we were saying earlier, it's the emotional impact on our folks and our community, quite frankly, that's the part that you just don't understand or can't anticipate, right? We're tough. We're superheroes. We want to get out there and be strong, but you just can't anticipate the emotional impact that something like this can give you. So our teams, our critical incident stress team, immediately responded and immediately set up resources to support everybody that needed it, and even those who didn't need it. Yeah. They were there for. But you at the hospital level mobilized your teams, offered support, offered help. It's just the fact that HCA, Ascension, Vanderbilt all came together, and just their administration was just serving food to us. It was a real demonstration of genuine love. This is a strong community. Yeah, it is. And when we talk about Nashville, I mean, a lot of people can just mutter out a lot of words. This is the truth. Mm-hmm. I've seen it with my own eyes. I experienced it myself, and it's a wonderful thing to know that exists. And a lot of our folks are better off for it. Yeah. Chief Swann talked about getting to know our community. We don't live in a silo. Our mindset is no longer rooted in the fact that we're the Nashville Fire Department. We can manage everything by ourselves. And we've heard the saying, you don't want to hand your business card to somebody at 2 a.m. There's a lot of truth to that. We've been beaten to death with it, but it is our responsibility as leaders and managers. We have to get into the community and meet our respective coworkers, our partners. we have to know them by first name. If your name comes across my phone at 2 a.m., no, I will answer that. If I don't know it, I might not. There's the value in that relationship and that handshake. If you ask me right at 2 o'clock in the morning, I can call my friend at NDOT and ask for a bulldozer at 5th and Elm. The only thing he'll ask me is what size bulldozer.
Wow.
You know,
Yes.
that's the relationship. I don't have to be put on hold and say, well, let's talk about this in the morning. It'll happen then. We have to get out there. And that's the relationship that we have with you all, the hospitals.
Yes.
Because our folks got taken care of from our folks internally and from the love outside.
You're right, and we see that, and it's very comforting to know when we all work for different services, but when we're all together, we are to serve each other. And I think that's why we do this as long as we do. And it's very, very powerful, and knowing that we can make a call, and regardless of what color your uniform is, we're all in it for the right reasons, is to serve. And I wanted to ask you, Chief Smith, so the event is over. I'm sure when you get home that evening, you're still trying to even process what happened. Everybody's watching the news, even although we weren't directly involved. I made it back to the hospital, got to interact with some of your crews. That was tough just to see them, knowing what they experienced without them even saying anything, having a conversation and them looking at me and just knowing, just by reading their face, that it was tough. So you get home, lights are out, or there's no noise, and you sit down. What goes through your mind after the emergency of the event is over and you're trying to make heads or tails of this?
There's a couple of things. In the quiet of your own home, in the quiet of space of your own mind, when no one else is around, there's a real calming moment when you know that the training worked well. That even though we had loss of life, the men and women who responded did every single thing they could have done. But the thing that goes through your mind the most, and it does for Chief Swann, and it does for our Chief of Staff, Chief Henderson, is that did we do enough? Are we doing enough, even in the few moments immediately afterwards, for our folks?
Okay.
We call this a brotherhood, a sisterhood, and maybe or a family, and perhaps it is a dysfunctional family at best, right?
Sure.
But when things like this happen, we come together.
Mm-hmm.
Our folks came in from home to relieve the crews that made those calls so that they could go home early, or that they could seek some kind of conversation early, so that they wouldn't be committed to another call. Because just because an incident like this happens, as tragic as it is and resource demanding as it is, 911 doesn't quit ringing.
Exactly.
Our high volume of calls continue to come in, and we owe that to the rest of our community to make those calls as professionally and as well as we possibly can. Our crews know that. So they came in, and many of them weren't called. They came straight in to work to help us out. We talked about training quite a bit, and I have to emphasize the parts that worked so well is you want, as a first, you'll understand this too. I know it's embedded into your blood. You get a call of this magnitude, you want to be on scene. You want to get there and do as much as you possibly can because that's who you are. But our crews fought that back, and they went to that staging location. They went up and they set up shop right where they were supposed to, so that when we called them, they immediately were able to come straight on up to the scene and support the request of the incident commanders, that unified command. So that worked well. I can't emphasize the number of people who just had a significant role in the success of this. From the folks who took it upon themselves to pre-plan that school, that knew the entrances and the exits, and knew a great staging area. And our Department of Emergency Communications to receive that first call and the subsequent calls afterwards, and to be able to maintain that extraordinarily high level of professionalism, putting out the call, dispatching all the pertinent information, and then even though our our paramedics who set up staging many times had already pre-planted, like I told you, even though they had done that, they went to the location and called the wrong address, and they called it right when they repeated themselves. Dispatch caught that small error and asked them for clarification, which really resulted in other people not getting confused and being able to come to the right place. So things went well, and I attribute that to training.
Yes, definitely. The team aspect. We're on it together. We each have each other's back, and
and we train solely with Metro Police Department.
Yeah.
We don't train with any other entity. It's just them, and we don't train by ourselves. If we don't train with them, we don't train.
Yeah. And the reason for that, explain that, Chief.
It's because you know what I'm doing, and I know what you're doing.
Yes. It's a powerful thing, because when you work incidents like that, that is who's going to be next to you. So training in a silo is not something that you want to do.
Correct. And you know, our police officers are so professional, and they're so task-oriented that they're focused on their jobs.
Yeah.
And they surround us in those incidences and make sure that we have, quite frankly, like I said earlier, the best security around us in the world. And they have to trust that our members are not going to be rogue. They're not going to go do their own thing or break away from the plan, right? So the trust factor in working together and training together is incredible. And we don't just train together. We're at every football game together. We're downtown in the district. Our RTF, Rapid Task Force teams, police and fire and EMS are together. At every large-scale event, outdoor event, when we have plenty here, right? 4th of July, New Year's Eve, CMA, the marathons. We all work together in a real situation, just in case.
Yeah. And we're talking, just to put this in perspective, when you say events, and we're talking about downtown Nashville, we're talking about tens of thousands of people that are coming to this. So this is not just 2 or 3 team members. We're talking dozens of team members that you work with day in and day out.
Yeah, there's a lot of dedicated and involved personnel who are ready to come in here and do their jobs. And you're right. It can be 60,000 people at a football game, or 200, 300,000 people on the 4th of July.
Yes.
Or several 100,000 people moving across the city in 3 or 4 days. And it's active and peaceful protests. It's just whatever the situation is. As Chief Swann has indicated multiple times, and he's really put our department in a good direction, that we are truly an all hazards department. It doesn't matter what. You pick up the phone and call 911. As a consumer, you have an expectation of getting some service. We're coming.
Yes.
It doesn't matter where you live, where you don't live, who you are, how old you are. We're coming, and we're going to come with a sense of urgency.
Wow. There's a lot to this. Let's talk about, from the event, and people listening to this nationally are going to be very engaged in this conversation because of what you all have experienced. And let's talk about things that you would want to share for others that have never experienced an event like this. Is there anything that you could share with them that would be helpful to prepare for it, hope that it doesn't happen?
Sure. Dr. Slovis will be very proud of me. There's 5 things right off the top of my head. The first 3 things are training, training, training. Absolutely. You have to train with the people that you'll be responding with. The second thing is identify your scenarios. The 4th thing, I should say. Identify your scenarios. In other words, don't do your tabletop exercises and you're planning things on 40 different scenarios. Narrow it down. We did schools, large open areas, and large businesses where a lot of people might gather, where it's a potential for a mass casualty. Our open area venues or events are rather large, as we talked about. So it made sense that we started doing a lot of conversation around how to manage these things, and then we did tabletops, and then we did a lot of full-scale exercises with the people that we would be training and responding with. And then the 5th thing, which is probably the most difficult, the most critical element, is you have to really, truly pick apart the errors that you make, the areas that need improvement, and not shelf them, work on them. Bring them back to the table. Did you do this? No, you didn't. Let's work on that. Let's make it a priority. Next time, that should be a hallmark that you're looking for in your training to make sure that you cover that lapse from the previous time. And then continually reevaluate those efforts.
Yeah.
Because it's such a large, it's a gigantic moving piece.
Yeah.
With so many different elements. And to have the foresight right in the heart of this event to think about, let's get our Office of Emergency Management to coordinate school buses so we can make that transition rather quickly. We had the relationship between the fire hall, Station 20, and the school was really incredible too, because they often had kids come down with their teachers to do a show and tell, and firemen and EMS folks just love that, right? Little kids putting on their giant turnout gear or whatever. It's always an attraction, and it's fun for everybody. Everybody has kids. Everybody that has kids or grandkids or wants them, and they're always welcome.
Yes.
Immediately after the shooting had stopped, though, and they had come down from the school oftentimes, so much so that they had worn a trail through the woods from the school to the fire hall. So after the shooting had stopped, many of them students, the children and the small children and some of their teachers made their way through that trail that they knew so well and sought refuge in the fire hall. Wow. So it's just that relationship too, and it also makes it more personal too, right?
Of course.
But it's just so important to get that training, to critically evaluate your training and your exercises, and put this stuff on paper systematically, to have a plan. Do we make mistakes in our training? But that's where we identify, right?
We all do. We all have to look at it from a lens of improving, because we cannot become complacent in this field. You know that, right. And that's part of, becoming better every day. We try to. And
well, anybody who does a training exercise says, man, that went well, didn't do a training exercise.
Yes.
Right?
Agreed. Yes. That's the spirit in why emergency services, and in the spirit of what you guys do is why you guys do such an amazing job. And as we get ready to finish this up, as we were talking in pre-briefing, and our producer Lee here is in the room, who's keeping us straight, you had showed something to us.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to make sense of this event. Truly, it just doesn't make sense, and for all the reasons that you described. But that folder that you have in front of us, tell us about that and what that means to you.
So, it doesn't really matter. We can talk about this shooting, and we can talk about other tragic events that happens in a person's career, whether it's no matter what it is, it's something that just breaks your heart. And you get to a point in your career, and perhaps the Covenant incident was that for me in some regards. But you just stop, and everybody's felt this way, where you say, I didn't sign up for all this. I was taught to be a fixer, and I can't fix. And I didn't. Nobody should have to see the things that we see, or to take home the images, the smells, the sounds of tragedy. It's just not what we signed up for. And it's disheartening. It makes you mad. When those children were exiting that building, Eric, they're this big. They're running out of the building in every direction, all holding hands. Just their faces told me they were searching for somebody that they know, some loved one. And you got 200 people dressed up in Ninja Turtle outfits, with rifles and ballistic vests and helmets, and it's a scary, scary moment, and it just breaks your heart, and you wonder why. And for days after that, I'm pounding my fist on the desk saying, why? Why would this happen? Why would something so insane happen? I didn't sign up for any of it. And I know people feel this way. This is why this is so important. A little girl, I'm told she's 6 years old, from Texas. I never met her. I received this card in the mail from her, and it changed the way I see things and the way I look at things. And the front says, thank you, from Kaylee Cox. I said, okay, just a normal card, right? Nice little handwritten card. And then on the inside, from John 1:16, it says, upon grace. And then Esther 4:14. And this is the part that smacked me right in the mouth, Eric. This is the part that shut my mouth and made me realize something completely different that I knew we had to share. If we didn't say anything today in this podcast, we needed to talk about this. It said, perhaps this is the moment for which we were created. Perhaps this is why you were there, so-and-so. This is why you put on that ballistic vest today. This is why you did that training, is to be there on this particular day, because I can tell you I was there and we made a difference. So thank you, Kaylee. A little 6-year-old girl, I'm told, who had more wisdom than all of us put together, who were able to take words from Scripture and give us our purpose back. So
That made it easier to come back the next day, didn't it?
it changed my perspective. It gave me my purpose back. In a world that sometimes feels hopeless, in situations where we can't be the fixer, in times where we feel like it's the darkest, this little girl reminded us that maybe that's the reason why we were put on this earth to begin with, is for that one moment.